Hello and welcome to the Alertus 2022 summer release presentation. My name is Brian White. I'm the Senior Technical Training Specialist here at Alertus, and I'll be leading you on this journey through all the changes we have in store for you with this latest update. Got a lot to cover, but plenty of time to do it. I've ordered these more or less in order of interest from immediately discernible changes to neat backend stuff that takes a little bit more digging to find and use. We're covering a slew of new features, which are always exciting, but what is most exciting to me on this update is the quality of life improvements. These are the changes that make configuration and operation of existing features a little bit more intuitive and faster to use. Before we get started, I want to establish that this format is designed to invite questions. You do not have to be passive observers for all this information. If you want to know how a change will affect your particular case, let me know and we can clear up any bits that seem confusing or concerning. There are 50 of us in this room right now, so I expect there'll be more than a few questions. So that being said, this is the format I'm going to use to explain all these changes. First, I'll give you a general overview of what is new and why you should care via these PowerPoint slides. Then I will demonstrate on the actual demonstration server so you can see the functionality in action. At any time during both the PowerPoint or this demo, feel free to ask questions. The PowerPoint is a great place for conceptual questions about the limitations or capabilities of a new change, and the demo sets the stage for questions on configuration and pragmatic use. As much as I love teaching, I'm not doing this just for me, so if there's something you'd want to better understand, don't hesitate to ask. All right. We're starting with the big one. May I introduce you to the desktop page? This is formerly desktop profiles, but now contains more than just profiles. The page also contains the middleware settings that directly pertain to Alertus desktop clients in this same place, as a human would expect. We also have HTML templates here as well. For those not in the know, the HTML templates are custom templates that you make at your org. You send them to us, we sign the certificates, we send them back to your server. Bada boom, you can use them as though they were native Alertus ones. Not many people do it, but it's nice that they are now controlled on the desktop page with all of the other templates. The splashiest part, though, is the redesign of how we do the desktop profiles. And it's easier to show rather than tell in this case. So we're going to go ahead and jump into our first demo for the desktop page. So we've got two servers up here. We can see training is using the old version, or we can see desktop profiles. And training 2 here is using the new version that has just desktop. So I'm going to do a quick new versus old comparison. If you've got any questions at any time, please feel free to speak up. I'm going to be starting with the old one. Click on the desktop profile page. And we'll see we have desktop profiles as the sole occupant of this page. If we click on it, we'll be able to customize their display mode here. We can do default. We can do any of these templates here. This is what you likely remember. We can also, at the bottom, display mode variables and customize it further. And this is the current functionality as we remember it. Let's take a look at how things have changed on the new server. So when we click on the desktop, again, not desktop profiles page, we'll see that there's a few things that are a little bit different. The first thing we'll notice is that there's going to be multiple sections here. And we can jump to those sections via these little links here. If you've got a million of each, it might make your life a little bit easier. And we also have this global settings button. If we click this, we'll see the settings that were previously on the middleware page. You can still find them there as well, but this gives us everything related to desktops on one place. The optional authorization code if you want that extra layer of security. We've got polling intervals for how often the Alertus desktops check back in. Even the device cleanup job for being able to clean up devices that haven't checked up in a certain number of days, each day at a particular time. In this case, if they haven't checked in a day, then at 3 a.m., go ahead and clean them up. I run a strict server. At any rate, all of these things are now on the same page. So if it's related to desktops, you don't have to wonder which page to find it. It is now all on the desktop page. That being said, here's the template skins again. We also have the ability to customize these profiles a little bit differently. So click on this. We'll notice that it is changed from having the standard desktop profile page to a different GUI. This one has a significantly larger WYSIWYG, which is, of course, what you see is what you get interface, where we can choose the same sorts of templates here. Skins are, again, the HTML templates, and the templates down here are the ones that came pre-made, and we'll see them displaying here on the screen. We also have the ability to do a ticker as a base for your display mode. Now, I would do this for your own skins, not necessarily a template here and try and turn it into a ticker. That may not be the best of look. But with these, you can now customize them further. So we have our display settings here for this ticker. Let's head back and look at a pop-up. We have the display settings that show where exactly to place it, if the user can move it, all the good stuff. And we still, of course, have the audio for text to speech or the ability to play an audio file. But the other neat thing we have here now is the HTML button, where you can look at the exact HTML of how this displays. Again, particularly useful if you are using your own templates and you want to debug. So it is a significantly more expansive look at how desktop now encompasses desktop profiles, HTML templates, and the middleware settings pertaining to desktops all on one page. We have any questions or concerns? There is now 86 people, so I would be astonished if no one has a comment on it. But I will wait the 30 seconds or so, and if no one does, we can move on. All right. Next up, oh, I see a raised hand emote, 2 raised hand emotes, Tim Harder, Steve Parrott, and there's a Q&A chat. Okay, perfect. What you recommend is the time frame for desktop cleanup? Great question. This is Sarah. So I generally do 30 days. This depends on your vertical. If you're doing education, it may not be unreasonable for people to be out for breaks that are a little bit longer. If you're doing something like commercial, usually holiday weekends aren't longer than like 5 days, so you could just do a week. You run a cleanup and the client for some reason is seen again, say it is a laptop and it's not used too often, will it re-add automatically? Short answer is yes, and any device assignment rules that are applied for putting into groups will also apply and filter it into those groups. The long answer is if it is manually assigned, it will not be sent into a group, which is again why we discourage manual assignment. The only discernible difference on the data side is that its hex code will be different. Everything else about it should be the same. What is the version of this upgrade? I need to start the approval upgrade for my system. Oh, let me pull that up real fast. Give me 1 second. So we are now on the new hotness one. We click middleware. Oh, sorry. We click instead of middleware is the one right next to it, this muscle memory there. And it looks like this is these versions right here. Let me do a quick print screen and I'll be able to send that hopefully in the chat. Save as version, and then I should be able to do this here. And I will have that for, oh, that's anonymous attendee. It would be difficult to send that to you via email via Salesforce. Does this upgrade affect my current desktop templates? Do I need to do anything right after the update? Nope. It is future safe, so everything, or past safe, I guess in this instance, so everything that you have done will still be fine. With this upgrade, will all their templates be unchanged? A previous update, if you deprecate some templates. Nope, nothing should be changed out. All right, let me get this Lourdes version. I just got saved over to here. And I will make sure to put that in the chat by the end. Want to know exactly where it is, but I am a little bit of challenges. That'll be okay. Any more here? Answer live, answer live. Oh, Tamara, that was my question. It's the fire alarm. tab now? New? It is reasonably new. It's about a year or so ago. It is super fancy. There's no updates to it on this one. But if you would like, after people drop off, if there is anything you want discussed in particular outside of the content for this one, I am an open book. I love this thing. I would love to go into detail on anything else that you are curious about. All right, solid. Looks like we are good on Q&A. Thank you to the people who raised their hand in the chat to remind me that there is a Q&A text. Is there any way to enable hyperlinks when pulling up a message in the message log history? So hyperlinks are something I am a little bit fuzzy on for the actual HTML templates. I know they are permitted, but there's also a data sanitation process that is used to prevent certain man-in-the-middle and injection code attacks. So I don't know if that is in the message log history. I will follow up on that though. Thank you for the question on it. Let me highlight this real fast so I remember it for later. All right, I see, looks like we've hit the end of open questions for this part. Going once, going twice. All right, let's keep on to summer release. All right, media. This is pretty interesting. So this was previously just the sounds page, but now contains images as well. And so we call it media instead of just sounds. We support a plethora of file types. I'll read out here. We got GIF that does, of course, include animated GIFs as well. JPEGs, PNGs, .svg, MP3, WebM, .wav or .wave. I'm honestly curious about what the split is in the chat for WAV versus WAVE. It's become a bit of a hot topic. And then .ogg or .org, which is a bit of an older one, but it is open source. So I highly recommend this if you're looking for a file format for recording. All right. And another additional part about this that's kind of interesting is for larger clients, and we're talking like 20,000 desktops plus, all of these clients referencing the same images and sounds. I can put a lot of load on the server, and you may not want that to be the specs of your server to host so many different images and sounds. So we've got a new option here that we can host these media files out on the cloud using Amazon S3, and then use the external server to serve up the content. This keeps the specs for the Alertis server small while being able to deliver the same content as a significantly more powerful machine. This is a new feature, though, that is being iteratively rolled out. So in the initial release, we focused on Alertis Desktop. That means that TTS devices like IP text-to-speech speakers and IPAVA interfaces are not currently able to pull that cloud files for playing just yet. It's something we're going to be working on in the following releases, but for right now, the cloud feature specifically is for desktops. All right. Alongside that is the ability to record audio directly in the browser for use on your alerts. If you are uploading audio for use in alert over IPAVA devices, again, like the TTS speakers, there is going to be a window of about 10 minutes after it is on the server, but before it is populated to those devices. This feature is used for configuration and is not meant to be a surrogate for live voice. It's a significant improvement in the configuration pipeline, though. As you might recall, our solution to using bilingual speech alerts is to be able to serve up pre-waves and post-waves to the alert messages. And now it's easier to record those directly in the browser, so you can do it all at once without having to hassle about recording and exporting from other software. And the goal here is that faster configuration so you can handle more situations with less complexity. Chat seems to be disabled for me, so I'll post here. .wave equals wave comes directly from waveform. There'll be live voice in the future. Oh, chat was disabled. Okay, yeah, the Q&A should be where these are posted. Thank you for calling that out, Rebecca. I do know that it's short for waveform, but that is fine. It is WAV, so there is the questionability there. Would there be live voice in the future? That's something that is being pursued, but there are a lot of technological barriers to that being able to be directly done. There are a few workarounds for specific systems like HVSAs, and the RRC does provide live voice to HVSAs, but for overall systems like Alertus Desktop, this gets tricksy. If you're using VoIP, SIP enunciators might give the option eventually, but again, this is in development, and if you have feedback for the desirability of it over specific endpoints, please leave it in feedback, send it to where people let us know that it's something you want developed, and we will prioritize it on the roadmap. All right, let's move on. Oh, alongside this, we have included a new role that allows for contributors to the server's media. This is a media user role that allows users to create, update, and delete media files, but not interact with the emergency alerting side of things. If you are a super user, you already have the ability to edit media and all the media related functions by default. But if you want your regular dispatch users or even preset users to be able to tinker with media, these again are ones that don't usually have configuration options. You can enable them separately in the user and access rights, but by default, right now it is just the super users who are able to change all these media files. And the new media user role they can use for your marketing team or your development team, whoever is okaying the specific images and sounds that are going to be used on the device. Now does not have to be the same people who are designing the standard operating procedures. I think that is particularly good for a healthy division of labor. But enough blabbering. Let's take a look at this here. So we're going to take a look at Air 2 features. I'm going to look at old and broke first, and then new and hot. So we go to the sounds page, which is what is obsolesced by the media page. We can see that we have Air sounds configured right here and the ability to upload them. Functional, just not terribly impressive. Ones that are default sounds cannot be deleted. That way they can always be future safe for whatever alerts. We have a level of dependability with them, whereas any sounds that you upload yourself can be deleted. Let's take a look now at how this looks in the new version. So rather than sounds, it is called media. It is right here. Same icon though. All right. So immediately we see the ability to do a local file, which is on the server, cloud file for those that have that Amazon integration to be able to serve it remotely. Again, this is for desktop, not for TTS. And then the ability to record audio live on the server to be able to put in this media. If we want, we can look at the cloud hosted only. You'll see I have no media on my cloud, but we can filter by that. We also see all of the sound and images that have been uploaded to the server, including, we see this break here in default media below. So it is segmented rather than all mixed in like in the other one. If we click on a particular logo or image, we can get more information about it. It was modified, it's cloud hosted, not file size, etc. Just if you're trying to do network diagnostics. So this is where the media is stored to be able to be played on other pages. These, of course, can be used in, well, at least the local ones can be used in TTS alerts. And again, on desktop profiles, remember there is the option to put in audio, and these are the audio options you would use. All right, so wrapping up the media page, do we have any questions, comments, or concerns about the new way in which we host Air audio and visual media on a page to be included in Alertus Desktop alerts, and for text-to-speech for the pre-waves, post-waves, or if you're feeling froggy, you can even do the middle part. Let me show that off real fast. So that would be a text-to-speech option. So let's just add one real fast to make our lives easier. Not name, we want text-to-speech. So for those that don't use these generally, we've got the middle part, which can be text-to-speech or audio in pre-wave and post-wave, which are always wave. So you can see that we can select the audio here on these. from that media picker. It's pretty neat. We'll get to some other bits of this later. All right. So let's do a quick 30-second for raised hands or questions. I'm seeing a couple coming in. Any future plans to integrate with SharePoint? Let's see, not that I'm aware of, but I'm certainly not on the development team yet. I will keep this in mind. Let me put a note on that. Could you give me a little bit more information on how SharePoint would be integrated with? Is this a single sign-on service? Is this a separate alerting sort of login page? Like what SharePoint offers? And that would give me some more insight into the ways in which we might integrate. Possible cloud repository. I think their current single sign-on solution, which we'll get into in a little, like near the very end of this, might be able to. We are going with one that we know is compatible with Azure, and that doesn't necessarily mean that it's locked into Azure. There should be other options as well, but we should get to that by the end. Does Alerus allow individual users to choose what type of information they may want to get pushed to their desktops? So where it's configured. Yes, the last topic is going to be the SSO. The short answer is that it's going to be configured on the server itself in the configuration file. Gabriel, though, I need a little bit more information on the type of information that would get pushed to desktops. So on the desktop profile itself, let me pull this up. The new desktop page. Want to use Alerus as a news service. Oh, yeah. Okay. So here's how you can do that real fast. If we go to middleware settings, and then threat watcher, you can enable watching for like weather alerts and any other Atom or CAP or RSS feed, really in the syndicated feed, and pull that through. Then you can use those feeds as an input for being able to say headline or title. Let me show you that real fast too, because it'll just be faster than explaining. So we're going to configure a new preset alert, and I'll show you some of the settings for that. So you could do like a ticker for smaller things. For weather alerts, I've got different nested CAP alerts that pass in that information. But what you'd be looking at here is preset variables. So you could say, if we're looking for a CAP feed, if we're following the news and want the news to be pushed in, we could add in the time, the address, the code, the headline, message type, sender. Generally, description and headline are the ones that are most important, but you can pass in whatever information you want, and you can put it throughout the alert. So you could have, this is a news update, headline, and then description beneath it. And you could pass that through using these desktop. You could accompany that with a desktop profile that has a distinctive sound via that media page if you want as well. All of this is possible. All right. Will audio alerts work with alerts sent via CAP alerts, say to carousel digital sign systems? Okay. Sent via CAP. So CAP is Common Alerting Protocol, which means you're just pushing, I think it's JSON, not XML. And it's essentially the same, but you're just pushing a packet of text to the digital signage. If the digital signage is not using a interface that allows for the installation of an Alerus desktop client itself, but instead is monitoring a CAP, the CAP wouldn't have a mechanism of sending in that sound information as well. Sorry, Brian. Could you tag RSS messages and allow end users select which type of messages they want to receive? All right, so Gabriel, for that one, the answer is in desktop, no, but with mobile, yes. With mobile groups, you can, now let me just show that as well. So on a group page, if you designate something as being mobile and someone has the mobile recipient app, so let's just do one of these, they can specify if they want to join or leave a group. So we'll say we do a group, it's a mobile group, you can give it a name, you can allow them to subscribe, and then the users themselves will choose whether or not they want these mobile messages pushed to their phones or whether they want to leave the group. That's how we'd accommodate what you're looking for, Gabriel. Nice. Yeah, I think so too, man. Love this jam. All right, so do we have any more questions on the media page? Before we move on, get a quick drink of water. Yeah, this chat is hopping though. I'm definitely enjoying this presentation. I wish I had this much engagement in my other ones. So if y'all want to join other presentations, please feel free to. It is excellent to have you here. All right. Now, for those using location targeting, we have the ability now to support custom maps. This has several applications. Custom maps are offline maps that can be used when targeting alerts and assigning locations to devices. So the first benefit of this is that if you've got a hosted server that isn't connected externally to the wider web, you can now save off these maps using map feature to take little snapshots, or you can upload your own. This means that if you have floor plans, you can also target specific locations in specific buildings very easily and directly in this interface. You upload the floor plan as your map, and bada boom, all of your devices can be mapped to their specific locations. Then when you use map targeting, you can target those sets. Which brings us to the second change, floors. So this one's pretty cool. When you upload a map, you determine where it is in the world by matching it to world coordinates. But you can also declare what height it is by specifying a floor. Then when you dispatch an alert, you can filter using maps to only alert a specific floor. Now this one is a little bit chunkier. So I'm going to go ahead and explain this the best I can before asking for questions, because it's a lot. All right, so if we look at the old version, the difference is there simply is no location here. So we've got our locations, we've got our shapes, and that's all. If we go to this new one, let's go ahead and clear these cache diffs real fast. We'll see we have our locations on the location side. We can see them on the world map. We could zoom in if we want to on any specific place. We can also see we have our shapes below it, but we now have this new section called custom maps. So in this, when we add a map, we do have the ability to specifically upload an image, or we just use a custom map creator. And this is how we'd be able to set a specific region. We can do the satellite view or the street view. Let's go ahead and choose somewhere off this island here. We'll say this is the map we're using for targeting right here. And it will automatically have the coordinates for it. This is just used for offline. If you wanted to, you could change this to street or the satellite view as well to be able to draw your locations that way. You save it off, and then you have this for your map. You can change the size of the map here, get more or less on screen. You can unlock the aspect ratio. So if your map you're working with is of a campus that is of a particularly weird size, you can still accommodate that as well. So it is pretty flexible. And I will show off this flexibility a little bit in showing the actual preset alerts. The other thing I want to pull into this is floor right here. So floor is a category on maps that is separate from locations proper in talking about targeting. This is where it gets a little bit weird. If you are targeting a campus and you do not specify a floor, you're going to get everything there. But if you do a specific map and then target a floor, you'll be able to target things only on that floor. So let me show that in practice because it's a little bit weird abstract. So we're going to do a custom activation that is a all hazard shelter in place. Because it's custom, I don't have these little prompts showing up. So we'll say surprise party, and then spell it properly, at Cantina. Again, these could be things like news. And we're just going to send this to all desktops. Keep it simple. So our recipients are going to be all, but we are going to filter this additionally using the map interface. So remember, these are intersectional filters, so they are AND gates, not OR gates. If you do a specific group and a map interface, it would only be units of that group that are also in that location, not OR. So just so we get all of our options, I'm going to start with all. I'm going to use the map interface to target. So we can see here we are by the Wandina Primary School, and I could use this map here and target all of these devices. In fact, I have a saved off street map of it. We're loading in right now. So if I wanted to, I could see these devices on the actual street map. But what I'm curious about is these illustrated maps that I've uploaded in that correspond directly to that location. We can see on floor 0, I have 10 devices here. If I want, I can hover over and see each of them. Here they all are at the same coordinate. So if I had different devices like alert beacons, I'd be able to see it there. On floor 1, we'll look this in. We've got only 9 devices here that are different. And on floor 2, we have even fewer devices. So if we wanted to target a specific floor, like say the basement floor for flooding, go ahead and filter by map interface, click, cool, everything on floor 0 of this map, hit continue. And on the confirm activation screen itself, we see these devices being targeted on the map selection. So we know that we are just targeting the ones on that particular map, which in this case is floor 0. We do a different map, we should get a different target. So let's go ahead and draw a shape here. Continue. Here we go. We've got these 9 now being displayed inside Polygon on floor 1. I think that's particularly nice that it shows you the floor there. All right. So that is, in a nutshell, the way that we have added these new floors into the targeting section of maps if you are using locations for filtering. Now, this is a little bit niche. It is stronger for buildings that have like causeways or skywalks. And if you're doing location-based clustering rather than group-based, it does give you some more options here. It doesn't disregard existing targeting that doesn't have specified floors. So some users, for instance, have a preset alert set up via custom event triggers. Let me show you how this is done because it's pretty cool. And just showing how this doesn't interfere with an existing configuration I'm sure someone's going to ask about, is if you were doing the particular cap alert for like tornadoes. So if you do an event of a cap, it's coming in, and the action to take would be to send, where's this? Send preset using alert profile. So with this, rather than specifying the target on the alert itself, you say whatever is in the location provided by the cap, whatever the tornado is, send it to devices in that location. That still works fine because for the more general case, it does all floors. So it doesn't matter what floor those devices are on, they will still be targeted by this cap alert. Can you add multiple map coordinates or map conditions for the same alert? Within the specific alert No, that has not yet been added. If you were doing this via a custom event trigger, like for instance, a wireless panic button push or hardwired panic push, you could send out multiple preset alerts, each of them targeting different floors. So that is one way you can handle that. But on the preset alert itself, functionality is not yet set up. Okay, do we have additional questions on the custom maps and locations? I know this is sort of a big change, and it might take a while to see all the ways that could filter through into your new standard operating procedures. Quick drink here, see if there are any more questions. There we go. Apologies if you already answered. So I'm assuming we assign devices by floor and we make this custom map to use a floor plan. We can narrow down the exact room as long as we find the exact coordinates of each device. You can do that. And as for assigning those devices by floor, I'm actually about to go into some greater details on that. But yes, you can assign them by floor, make the custom map, and if you want to put those devices in specific coordinates, you can do that. Generally, I find it's easier to cluster them by room, like library or front room for admin building, like the front office versus the back office. But if you have a particularly overzealous IT team, you can put them by a specific coordinate. I just think that is more trouble than it's worth for the reasons we're going to discuss right here for device assignment rules. This is how you can do automatic floor assignment. As you know, anything worth doing is worth overdoing, so we've included the option to designate floor in the device assignment rules. This means that the format for importing and exporting rules via CSV had to be changed to accommodate this as well. Basically, there's just a new field. So there's now a floor field. Just add that and leave it blank if you're uploading stuff. If you're exporting stuff, you'll see that just has that floor field in BD. As for the manual device batch updater, not quite yet. Give us a patch or two. We want to work on the ones that people use all the time, and this is the big one. So you'll see it is right here at the bottom, floor, and it is separate from the specific location. These are handled as completely different pieces of data because targeting by location hits everything, and the floor itself is just to filter more so. So let me show that part right here. All right, so we don't really need to show the old one because it is just that field doesn't exist, but I will pull up on the new one, the device assignment rules. And I've created some of these for that Wandina primary school. So let's just look at sort 10 through 14. So we can see we're using the location of this library and now also assigning floor 1. Priority in the case of locations are because a device can only exist at one place at a time. So if it matches multiple rules, you need to decide which one is the most specific and put it there. This could be a case where you have the general, this is the library, and then have specific devices in specific locations if you want to go deeper. But I think it is sufficient to just do it by room. You can use all the same assignment rules that you would for groups. In this case, I'm using a regular expression by name that just says, if it is sim_1 and then the number 0 through 4, so 10 through 14, put it in this particular place. You can, of course, use the IP ranges. So everything from a particular IP address or IP range is a particular room or building. You could also do it by BSSID. So this is sort of like a MAC address, except instead of being the network card for the device itself, it is the equivalent of that, the network card-based infrastructure that is in a gateway. So it's a physical piece of hardware-based ID that is native to that switch or that router that is used for saying all devices that pass through this switch are assigned to this location. So you might want to have something like this as a default location if you're doing wireless, for instance, and you don't know the specific location, but you still want to have them displayed on the map for this means of targeting. You definitely do it without floor in that case. These are still static assignments for floor yet. If the laptop is carried to a different building, there isn't a GPS GIS update, correct? Okay, so this has to do with device assignment rules. If you design the assignment rule to be based off of, say, name, then it is assigned initially a name on its first check-in, and that does not change. But if you're using IP address, BSSID, or check-in variable, each time the Lotus desktop checks in, which is by default about 20 seconds, but as we saw on the desktop page, you can change that to be more or less frequent. Each time it checks in, it will evaluate the criteria for device assignment rules. So if someone has their laptop and they walk from one building to another, and the IP address they have is changed to meet the new building's wireless switch or wireless router, then they will see that that laptop is now reporting from a different IP range. Ergo, it would be sorted by a different device assignment rule and then have that new floor and that new location the same way you would do groups. So it's not evaluating the GPS coordinates of the device itself, it's using the IP range or the BSSID or a check-in variable to determine where the GPS coordinates should be and moving them there based off of that criteria. Does that answer the question, Todd? Okay, can you elaborate on a check-in variable? I can. The question is, how much time do we have? So a check-in variable is a unique idea. So names don't evaluate on check-in, but a check-in variable, as the name implies, does. This is something that is specified on the configuration file for Alertus Desktop, the same way the name variable is specified. Now, the interesting thing about check-in variable is you can point this to dang near anything. For instance, the one I like to use is you check the registry value for the default keyboard configuration of the user, and then you can effectively sort your users by language because there is a code for each language used. So you just say, hey, registry value for current logged in user. What's the keyboard config? And they say German. You say, great, this user is now in the group Germans. And when the button is pressed for an emergency alert, they now get the preset alert that goes to the group German and uses the German voiceover. You can use it to push to dang near any other variable, everything from epoch time from Linux to any of the variables you'd use for the name, like your domain, your end user, your computer name, and anything in registry values. And because this is changed at every check-in, that means if you have another program that throws events that you can view in the event viewer, you can also set in a scheduled task through Task Scheduler to listen through said event and then change said registry value. So it is also a way that you can have other programmings or other programs running on your machine dictate a value from bottom up for sorting of desktops rather than it being on the server side entirely. It is a cornucopia of worms that deserves its own presentation at some point. All right, I hope that answers you, Tim. I could go on at significantly greater length. I'm just not sure this is the venue to do so. Todd, not quite floors, won't have different IP ranges, but our secured wireless is campus global. So I guess it will need to be changed to BSSID rules. You could do that if you want to do locations in this manner. Again, this will not compromise your use of groups at all. If you still have them set up in groups, that's perfectly fine. This is for specifically using the map interface to be able to filter. That being said, it would be a separate set of device assignment rules. If you want to do this, your old ones will remain the same, because you can see that these rules can apply to groups or locations. So you could still just as easily assign them via group, just like you normally do, and use locations only for specific conditions that have, like, a barrier wall or some other geographic feature that makes it reasonable to do a specific shape rather than just doing the area or the groups of that space. Still can't see the snapshot of the version. Let me get that here and there. 1 second. Let me apply to this directly for type answer. All right, so I'm going to go to help.alertus.com real fast and get the version number from there. 2.5 shakes tops. Here, I'm gonna log in. Now it's on the other screen. Give me just a second. Use my customer version of this. All right, so on this, we can go to supports and downloads. And I'm going to find the software download. I've got available a whole bunch of them, but what we're looking at specifically is the Alertus server. And it looks like their version here is 5.17.1. Got all of this knowledge. So I'm going to open this up. No preview, that's fine. Download that, and then I will copy paste the file name and put it into the chat here so that we can go ahead and use that as a version for requesting the change. Or if it's taken a while because there's a million people updating right now, I think I can also just use the copy paste here. Alertus server 5.17.1. 5._, excuse me. 17.1 _ summer, and then 3.16.22. 16.22. 0719. All right, that should now be answered in the chat. As I click the button, did that show up? It's here in the answered columns. Okay. All right, solid, excellent. Thank you for the patience. All right, now let's hop on back into the presentation here. We were on device assignment rules. All right, any further questions on the device assignment rules that we're looking at here? Looks like we are good for right now. Alertus Webhook. All right, so this is a new alert service that can be triggered when alert is sent or canceled. Now, this is designed to be a much more general, much simpler version of HTTP request. So the payload is pushed, not pulled, and it is used for integrations. So if we're doing digital signage, this is another way that we can set up a connection between them without having to go through all of the rigmarole of the full HTTP request. This is also how you'd push things to a website if you want to get real frisky, and we can use it to activate third-party systems as well. So I'm going to show the difference between the two real fast. I don't want to go super deep into the woods here because, again, it is exceedingly technical, but I'm more than happy to answer any questions on it. So let me show the difference real fast. All right, so we do an HTTP request, and normally we've got a bevy of things to set up. What to do on deactivation, what to do on activation, all of the methods for being pulled into this, retry intervals, a whole bunch of nonsense that I'm sure is very well serving. Now look at this new hotness, the alertist webhook. We've got a URL, we've got how we're being authorized, and if we send something on the activation as well. That is it. That is all we need to know. Everything else is handled. It's just passing the information through. Godsend for doing your website integrations. All right, that one is super short, very intentionally so, because there is not much to cover here. We're getting towards the things that are a little bit more self-explanatory, but I'm still open to any questions or comments on it. Is there a single spot with best practices or additional how-to information on release? So the knowledge base should have best practices for particular products, but additional how-tos I have not recorded yet. If there are specific ones that you want me to be able to record for this release, please go ahead and post it in here so I'll know if there's anything in particular that I'd want to be able to cover and get out there. Just things that are frequently asked, I am able to carve out some time and do little tutorial videos. A lot of them are already hosted on YouTube for the Alertist training channel. If you are not tired of my voice yet, you can find a whole bunch of tutorials there that I have done, but for specific best practices, let me know what you want. I'll see if I can get it done. Okay, so we did that. Before moving on, just to make sure, do we have questions on Webhook? I know it's kind of niche, but I want to make sure I'm giving everyone time of day for anything they'd want to know. All right, solid. Variable filtering. So this is for custom event types. We can see this in preset variables, which we saw when we were talking about the cap field, and it's also on the events and criteria. Nothing earth-shattering, but we're just trying to iteratively make. We're going to do a preset alert just like before. So we go to configure system, preset alerts. And on the old version, we're going to show adding a preset variable. Looks like the older training server is still waking up here a little bit. So when we add a preset variable, we'll see that we select cap, and then we have this whole list of all of these specific variables. On the new version, let's go to configure and preset variables, or preset alerts again. Pull up those preset variables. Preset alert. When we add preset variables here, we set our initial event type, and we have these set here. But if we have something that has a little bit more filtering, like say a panic button activation, we can say, oh, you're doing a panic button activation? Tell me more. So we've got all the variables for all panic buttons. But if we want to filter by, say, just the kind going from Alertist desktop, then we have only the ones pertaining to the Alertist desktop. Same thing for, say, Wi-Fi panic button. We now have only the information for the Wi-Fi panic button. And by that, we can say, oh, it uses relay index absolute to determine which button is pressed. Okay, now I know how to index that rather than trying to use a different index type. Same if we're using like alert beacon. We can see the information here for memberships, location. And we'll note that there's quite a bit fewer than we'd expect for, say, like the desktop one. That way we don't accidentally try and ask for information that's not there. This is visible here on the variables for the preset message, but likewise, it's also used for filtering on the custom event triggers. So if we add a custom event trigger, and we want, again, the initial event source to be a panic button, we can now filter this further and say what we're really looking for is a panic button connected to a text-to-speech interface, like an IP speaker. And here we can see we don't even have to scroll. These are the variables that we could get from that device. It just makes it easier to find what you're looking for, as opposed to if we go over here in the old version, we go to our custom event triggers, and we click on a panic button as their source, we'll see that we do have to scroll, and there's quite a bit more that we have to sort through for any given activation type. So event source, go to a panic button. Look at all that. Oh my, that scroll bar is so long. No. None of that. This is what we want. All right, so that is what that ability does for us. I don't imagine there's any questions on that one because it is just making life significantly easier. But if you do have them, please post them in the Diggly Do here, the Q&A section. I'd be more than happy to answer them. All right, looks good. Lightning dashboard. So this one is pretty cool. You do have to have the Lightning dashboard enabled. So I'm showing this one via video on Summer, just because Summer is an active dev server and I don't want to bother Gary. Much as I love the guy, I try not to make his life too much harder. So we're going to be viewing a short video of this being accessed on the specific Summer server. The thing that is interesting about this is, rather than Lightning dashboard, which is the URL you would get internally if you're typing into this via the web console, this allows someone without login credentials to view specifically the Lightning dashboard, again, without having to log in. So any students, any staff, any faculty, anyone who you don't necessarily want to have a login to the Alertus emergency alerting dashboard can still see lightning strikes and have that information available to them. It is, of course, also optimized for mobile devices. So let's go ahead and take a quick look at this. It's full screen if possible, if not, NVD. So we log out, and then at the very top, we can provide someone this web URL, which is the one that we just saw, alertusweb/lightning. Again, not dashboard at the end. And even logged out, we hit enter, and lo and behold, we have this lightning dashboard. We can zoom in, we can look at specific lightning strikes, and we've got the history up there. All right. Another additional bit here is the Hvsa dashboard download as CSV. So for this one, it is nothing that's too serious, but if you want to be able to archive Hvsa health, or have information available for resellers or other people who are handling your tech support, or if you are handling tech support for a customer and want to be able to get specific information about specific HVSAs, we now have this ability to export as CSV the health and data of those over a period of time. So how it works is we go to the Hvsa dashboard as we normally would. Then we select the specific targets that we're looking for. In this case, you could just choose the largest node and then the largest node again to select everything from that node. And right here is that button to export the CSV. And then you know how websites work. There it is in the bottom left. You've downloaded the CSV. All right. Now into new integrations. So Blackberry Ad Hoc. This allows us to now target the templates via Ad Hoc. It is using a REST API, so it acts exactly like our other REST APIs, which is to say, when you start the alert surface, if you have, we've got a chat thing, Ad Hoc, thank you. Let me check in here. It looks like they call it Ad Hoc in their service. And I ain't here to tell BlackBerry how they do their job. I'm just saying this is what is on the server. I will, however, do due diligence and open up a new window here. Blackberry Ad Hoc. Yep, they call it Ad Hoc. Yeah, I know. Same feel, Gabriel, same feel. So Blackberry Ad Hoc, not Ad Hoc for whatever reason, has their template set here. We connect to it using credentials that are set on the configuration file on the server initially. And then once we have that connection established, when you open up that alert service, it will populate with that information. It takes about a second to 3 seconds because it is actively querying that server and populating it over. I'll show you what that looks like real fast in this demo. It's nothing dissimilar to all their other integrations, so it is super fast. Go to alert service, we do Blackberry Ad Hoc. Click on it, you'll notice there's a second or two, and then these things are populated and you can look at them and choose any overrides you want. So you've got the basic template, but you can say, I want this template, but change who the audience is or change how it is sent out. All of this information can be overridden for this specific alert service. So you're not beholden to only the information in the template. It's just the starting point for customizing the alert going out to BlackBerry. Which I don't know, maybe configure it on their side because we know how to spell ad hoc, just saying. All right. And finally, Twitter. There is one more after this, the SSO stuff. But Twitter in the old version, not sure if y'all are up on the Twitter lore, ETM, synchronous transfer mode applications over hybrid fiber optic cables. Oh, is this what ad hoc stands for? Oh, gotcha. Okay, so it is actually a an acronym. Thanks, Gabriel. So with Twitter, there was this whole hubbubaloo about being able to create applications to run Twitter API. This came after the Cambridge Analytica stuff, and it was a bit of a headache. So we're now using the 2.0 version of the Twitter API to manage alerts, and it allows us to use the Alertus apps to send via the other account. This is a huge improvement because you no longer need a developer account to say, I am legit and I'm trying to send an alert. You can now use the Alertus one. I'm glad that this is finally a thing you can do. I question if you're using Twitter as your primary means of sending this out, but it is a decent secondary or supplemental means, particularly if you're doing this with weather alerts. Will this change affect current Twitter integration? So let me show you. The short answer should be no. There is actually 2 Twitter integration versions of this, and let me show you how that's set up. So we're going to air alert services, and there are 2 ways we can do this Twitter thing. So let's not do name, let's do service type. We see there's the custom app. This is the old way it had to be done, where you have these tokens, the all secret and all that nonsense. And then we have the current Twitter one here. You can have this information sent this way, but excuse me, I'm looking, I'm on training too. Okay, so let's compare it against the old one here. That's what I'm doing wrong. So if we search for Twitter here, see, we only have the one version of it, which is this one. So the custom app one here, the old one, and we now have the ability to do this via generating a code and sending it out. Click generate code and just says, hey, you want to use with Alertus, just say what username and what password you're using. Will generate a code to connect with you. No problem. So it is just an easier interface to connect these 2 things, and you don't have to do quite as much legwork, and you don't have to be a developer. So the old one still exists here using the 1.1 Twitter API, and this is the one using the 2.0. So the old one is unaffected. It is just a separate alert service from the new one that is easier to set up. All right, Rebecca says ad hoc is actually a Latin phrase literally to this, but modern English usage means on demand or spontaneously. Well, at the risk of all of the groans, it's all Greek to me. All right, let us head over. So do we have any other questions on the Twitter 2.0 integration? The old ones are perfectly set up. Source former Latin scholar. And the only thing I remember from my Latin days is Agricola being farmer. Sending alerts on Twitter or the other way around. This is sending alerts to Twitter, not taking in from Twitter. If you wanted to do an input, you would do an RSS feed or a cap. I am sure there is some sort of a way to integrate a Twitter tweet into being passed along through a mouse trap-like chain of cap alerts. It would be a fun project for me to look into, but I do not know off the top of my head how to make it work. Yep, there's the groan, as expected. Just checking, that's what I thought. Yep. All right, solid. So that's the Twitter side. Now, this is what we have for the single sign-ons. So we are now using SAML 2.0. And full disclosure, although I'm a little bit knowledgeable on SSOs, this is by no means my strong suit relative to everything else we've covered. So it should work with any other IDP or identity provider that supports SAML. We know Microsoft Azure does. That's what we were initially setting this up for, so we could do the hosting for the cloud deployment of those distributed images and audio for desktops. So we know for certain that works. And in theory, then, if it's using SAML 2.0, it should work with this as well. In the short term, if you are a customer who wants to use this, please reach out to us and we'll do a little bit more specific work on it. There is a new server setup tool for being able to set that up. That is a lot more integration and internal facing. But SAML 2.0 is the new SSL we are supporting. I personally like it a great deal more than Shibboleth, because Shibboleth exchanges a whole bunch of metadata and it is a nightmare to configure. I cannot imagine SAML being worse. All right. Gabriel, you use SAML with Azure. I assume there's an added cost for the SAML integration. I assume so as well, but I'm not a salesperson. I can definitely forward that and get some information. Will this presentation be available offline? Yes, it is being recorded. Let me double check. Yes, good. The recording light is on. Thank goodness. This will be available offline. It will be posted on air customer portal, so it can be viewed by those who would like to see it and who have missed it. They will, however, miss the chance to ask questions and provide information on Latin phraseology. Which, while I've got you, what is EG? How do you reach out to the development team? Opening up a ticket would be a great way to reach out to them. Tech support does answer those tickets and does forward those ideas to them. I will tentatively say that for now, that is the correct answer until I am told otherwise. Exemplar gratis. That is faster than Google. Yeah, it makes sense. It's an example. So exemplar gratis, for example. Solid. All right. That's me. I am your senior training technical specialist, whatever they call me nowadays. This is my email. Don't spam me, but if you have particular questions about this presentation, feel free to reach out. I no longer do bar mitzvahs or birthday parties, but I do other tech releases. So be on the lookout for me to do more of these in the future. Do we have any closing questions, comments, concerns, general heckling, or Latin knowledge? All of these are always welcome in these webinars. Free example. Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you so much. You're welcome. It's my pleasure. I should have the list of attendees here, and from that, I should be able to send the link for the recording. I do see that there are a number of people who have redundant logins, like there's multiple Eric Dunnings and multiple John Litzenbergs. I'm not sure exactly how that would work. Oh, Penny's here. Hey, Penny, it's good to see you. But I can see if there's a way to send this out via the panelist or the attendee list cross-referenced in Zoom against the reference email count for it. I can't promise to that, but I will do my best. And if not, it will be hosted on the customer portal. Again, twice, once for audio, once for video. Would it break anything? I assume they're using the same email account. I'll do my best on it. But again, no promises because I cannot guarantee that I will do something new the first time the right way. Very informative, fun. I really appreciate that you're a human being and not some corporate slaw giving a presentation. You know, I have often been called a human being. Thanks, Rebecca. It is definitely how I prefer to be on these. All right, but I think that covers the majority of what we got to go on here. We are at 12:40, so anyone else who wants to drop off, feel free to. I know I mentioned earlier that if there were specific cases or information that you want covered in greater depth, that at the end, I'd be more than happy to go on those tangent conversations. So if there are any tangent questions or comments, now would be the time. If not, feel free to drop off. I'm gonna stick around for, I'm gonna say about 2 minutes from the last question. So if 2 minutes go by without a question, I'll go ahead and end it just because some people stay on and leave the computer for a minute or two. I don't want to be here all day in case someone forgets about it. All right, so I'm going to start the clock now and be on call for any stragglers. For everyone else, thank you for so much for joining. It was a pleasure to be able to have a conversation about this information, and I hope to see you in some future ones. All right, we got some questions. All right, so for me, I was sent the link by one of my guys who reports to me. How do I get on the notification list? Man, if marketing isn't spamming you, I do not know what to tell you. Penny, can we get this guy on a list? Are you still in here? She's gone. All right, let me, Ben Moss, is your email you're logged in with here of the host name of your organization so I can find you in Salesforce? Awesome. Let me Control C, pull up one of these chats here and put this in a new channel. Just throw it on Gary for right now. Perfect. All right, I've got you saved to get added to a list. And yes, solid. All right, I will make sure you get on the list for, let me make this the notification list for new updates. Server releases and webinars. Sign up to. Okay, now for the, or should I say, Glenn says thanks. You got it, man. The fire panel. Okay, so the fire panel one is a little bit tricksy. There are two ways that you can integrate into a fire panel. One of which is via dry contact closures on an alert beacon. This is what you'd use for a non-indexed era fire panel. So each specific circuit going to a floor would have a wire that carries whether or not there is a problem. You can then set that wire to also go to the alert beacon and let the alert beacon know if there is a problem. For the fire alarm over here, I believe I'm still sharing screen. This is a separate integration that uses a FACP module, and it is a paid integration and a little bit complex. So how it works is it uses the RS-232 port coming out of the fire panel itself. For those not in the know, an RS-232 port is the old printer port for printers in the 80s, and fire panels were initially designed to be able to print out this rolling ticker of what's going on in the facility that has a real person reading through it and advising people on what's going on. This means that there are significantly more issues or significantly more messages here than just fire. So what we do is we have an integration specialist come out and talk to your fire panel person. The fire panel person prints out the corpus of all possible alerts that could be sent via that fire panel. And from that, we configure using regexes the specific messages that would be triggered under certain conditions. So we set an event boundary that says this is the space between messages. When on the printer, we see this specific line of code, which is just a couple new lines, we say, okay, now I know it's a new event. Fire panels were made in the age of sarsaparilla, and they have wildly different syntax and convention. So there isn't a standard way to do these boundaries. That's why it's different for each integration for each panel. Your implementation person looks at how it's set up, says, oh, okay, this is how we specify that. Then it looks at each specific status. So these are all the statuses that can be reported by a fire panel, and then corresponds that to a given regex that can also pass out what these specific sensors are, so that you can create custom event triggers keyed off of if there was an alarm, a reset, trouble, whatever information from whatever sensor node in the network. Again, these are using indexed fire panels, so we know which node is triggered, and it is a whole lot of technical gobbledygook to identify which panel using which make and model being reported by which module is the one reporting what issue. And all that gets integrated so that it can be turned into nice, uniform, easy to work with custom event triggers. So if you want to change your preset alerts or whatever activities that come as a result of those fire panels, you can do so. But this side of things is deep in the weeds and is done by an integration specialist, which is why it is a whole paid thing with proprietary software that we made to interact with these fire panels in the first place. That is the general overview of all of the nonsense that it is capable of doing. Do we have, or does that answer the breadth of the question on fire panels? Solid, yes, okay. And I will reset the timer for 2 minutes and see if we have any new questions. Oh, you're welcome. It is my pleasure. All right. That 1 minute warning. I think we're pretty safe. Can't imagine anyone is typing out a question that takes a full 2 minutes to ask and wait until the end of fire panel to do so. But I will give you the full time just to be sure. All right, and that marks 2 minutes. Thank you all. That is all, folks.